The BreakFree movement was created to address stereotypes and expose things harmful to society that occur every day, like bullying, racial profiling, and sexism. Domestic violence is what my production crew and I decided to focus on. We found a story from a pregnant woman who experienced domestic violence, and we went out into the public and asked people to listen to her story. Once the word domestic violence was heard, people instantly said no. Only 3 people agreed to listen to Jane's story of the horrors she faced in her own home. And here is Jane's story.
I didn't see it coming. We went out with some of his friends, and he had been drinking all day, and then his old girlfriend arrived. I was upset because he sat on her knee and kissed her, so I went to sit in the car. He came bellowing over, so I locked the door. He put his fist through the passenger window, then dragged me through it. After receiving a punch in the head, one of his friends drove me home.
I don't think anybody should abuse their partner or anything.
A little sad.
The emotion is sadness and anger.
At home, I tended to my sore head, scrapes, and bruises, but what hurt most was that it happened at all. The next day when he arrived at the flat, he was full of remorse. Things would be different. He wouldn't drink, and he would never hurt me again. I believed him.
He said oh, it's not going to happen again. It's probably going to happen again.
Things did improve for a while. Soon I discovered I was pregnant, and he seemed over the moon with the news. A few months later, he came home drunk, and after arguing, he punched me in the stomach. I ended up in the hospital with a ruptured cyst in my ovary.
A little angry because, there's not much you can do about it. If that was me, I'd be extremely angry.
I would probably call the authorities.
Obviously, that's super messed up.
However, after our baby was born, the drinking continued. I got pregnant again, this time with twins. When I was pregnant, we moved again, this time to be closer to his family, as I was going to need help and support with twins on the way. This was a move I should never have made. His father also had a drinking problem. They were a bad influence on each other. During my pregnancy, he abused me again and again. Another time I pulled a kitchen knife on him and he laughed, as he knew I would not use it. Then he spat in my face. There were times when he was at the hotel with his parents, and I would pray that someone would knock on my door and tell me he was dead, rather than facing him coming home. I was trapped. The only people I knew were his family, and I had no way out. A few weeks later, when I went to get one of the twins from her cot, I found she had a blanket over her and a shirt wrapped around her head and shoved in her mouth. Quickly I removed it and she gasped for breath. I was shocked and angry. How could he do this to his own child?
It was a horrific story. It's terrible. It's a terrible story.
It was kind of intense, and you kind of expect it, but you kind of don't. And so it kind of came out of nowhere. Just she goes home, looks at her kid, and it's suffocating. It's oh, whoa, okay.
It's obviously wrong, but I feel a lot of times girls feel if they like the guy so much, oh, but I love him so much, I don't want him to hate me, or they feel they're afraid to speak up about it and let people know.
I confronted him and rang his parents for help. When his parents arrived, his father was drunk, saying, "It's all right, son. I know she's bullshitting." He swung a few punches at me, then left.
She probably should have reported it.
It's that happens in reality, unfortunately.
I could say what I think she should have done, but whether or not being in that position, if I wasn't it myself, I don't know if I would want to tell certain people or let certain people know.
I was a little scared of the future, but not like I had been every day for the last 5 years. The eggshells I had been treading on were gone. My children could cry, and I didn't have to shush them. I was determined to turn my life around. One weekend, when he was staying with us, he started drinking. We argued, and I asked him to leave. He refused. I went to phone the police. He hit the phone out of my hands and pushed me to my knees. He put one hand around my throat and squeezed. I was able to break away, and I ran out the front door. He caught up to me in the neighbor's garden, pushed me to the ground, and started punching and kicking me. I thought he was going to kill me. A female voice called out that she had called the police, and he fled. I believe if it wasn't for the intervention of a stranger, I'd not be here today.
question.
When you say, how do we end abuse?
I don't think there's like one, end-all be-all solution.
I think probably education,
I mean, the only thing I can really say is like, make it a topic.
especially for women that are probably more abused so than men. So educate women on how they can get help and get out of that situation where they feel as though they have nowhere to turn.
Slowly encourage some people to get out of their shell a little bit and say something.
Like, bring it up in schools, like make people aware of it, and like have resources for people who who do need like that available to them.
People can't just stop domestic violence.
But the only thing you can do is get the message out and educate people about it.
The faster we educate people about it,
The faster we can take steps towards making a change.